Guy Penrod is on the road right now, and at 61 years old, he is still out there, night after night and city after city. And something happened on that stage recently that the people in that room will never forget. Nobody filmed it, and he wasn't supposed to say it, but he said it anyway, straight into the microphone, in front of everyone. And before this video ends, you will know exactly what it was. To understand why that moment hit the way it did, you first have to understand who Guy Penrod actually is, not just as a name on a gospel music poster or a face from a Gaither vocal band recording, but as a man who has spent his entire adult life doing one thing with absolute faithfulness: singing, ministering, and showing up every single night. And before we go any further, a quick note for everyone watching. Exclusive content and deeper coverage of this tour that never makes it to the main channel lives inside the membership, so join if you want access to all of that. And for any new updates on tour dates or announcements, the posts section is the first place that information goes up, so keep an eye on that section if you are following this tour closely. 11 years as the lead vocalist for the Gaither vocal band turned Penrod into something rare inside Christian music. A voice that did not just fill a room, but shifted the feeling of it entirely. That deep Texas baritone, that presence, that ability to walk onto a concert stage and make an audience feel like they had walked into a place of worship. Those qualities set him apart from the first moment he stepped in front of a crowd. People who saw him perform in those years knew, without being told, that what was coming was not a show in any ordinary sense. And that distinction has remained the center of everything he does. His 2026 concert tour includes dates at venues like Blue Gate Performing Arts Center. And those kinds of settings, intimate, community-rooted, close enough to see his face clearly, have always been where his ministry connects most directly with an audience. Not arenas or stadium stages, but the rooms where a person in row 3 feels spoken to personally when he leans into a lyric. And based on what fans are saying online after these recent shows, that connection is not just intact at 61. By most accounts, it runs deeper than it ever has. The reviews coming back from his 2026 live performances return to the same words over and over. Powerful, authentic, like sitting inside a church service. One woman wrote that she drove 3 hours and would make that same drive again without hesitation. Another described watching her father, a man who rarely showed emotion, crying quietly through the entire second half of the show, and none of that surprises anyone who has spent time in a Penrod concert. Because what those rooms produce is not applause for vocal technique, but something quieter and harder to describe. A sense that the music is doing something beyond entertainment. That has been true across 3 decades of live performances, and none of it appears to be fading. Walking into one of these concerts, you notice immediately that the audience is multi-generational in a way that almost never happens at a single show anymore. Grandparents who have followed this man's voice since the 1990s sit near parents who grew up hearing his recordings on Sunday mornings. And somewhere in the mix are teenagers who arrived because someone who loves them brought them along. Teenagers who, by the end of the night, are no longer looking at their phones. Something about the way Penrod delivers a song in the context of faith reaches past whatever wall is up and lands in a place that does not need an explanation. He prays from the stage. He pauses. He talks. And when he talks, people go quiet in a way they rarely go quiet for anyone. The moment itself happened about halfway through the show, but to understand what he said and why it silenced an entire room, you need to know what Penrod has been saying publicly in the years leading up to this tour. Because what came out of him that night did not come from nowhere. It came from something that had been building for a long time. Penrod has spoken openly in interviews, in conversations from the stage, in the quiet spaces between songs, about what it means to age as a vocalist inside Southern gospel and Christian music. He has acknowledged that his voice has changed, that the instrument he received is not the same one he carried at 35, and the way he talks about that is not with bitterness or loss, but with a kind of hard-won openness about what religion and faith ask of a person when a career built on a God-given gift starts to shift. He has spoken about the vulnerability of standing in front of thousands of people with a voice that is different than it once was, and about learning to trust that what was placed inside it still carries something worth hearing. Surrender comes up in those conversations, not giving up, but releasing the need to control the final shape of things. And then there are his children. Guy and Angie Penrod have 10 children, and several of them have watched their father perform from the stage their entire lives, growing up knowing that their dad is someone who treats the gift he was given with complete seriousness. What his children see when they watch him in a concert setting matters more to him, by his own account, than any chart position or award he has ever received. That framing, the legacy a father builds in front of his own family, runs through everything he says about why he keeps going, and it is the thread that connects every public statement he has made about the final chapter of his career in music. And this is where everything builds to that moment. Halfway through the concert, after a song ended and the room went still, Penrod did not move to the next number. He stood there, looked out at the audience, and began speaking, not from anything prepared, not from a script, but from whatever place inside him opens up when he decides to tell the truth in public. He talked about standing on that stage at 61 and feeling something he had not expected. Not sadness, not fear, but a gratitude so complete it almost undid him right there in front of everyone. He told that audience he had started thinking about his time in music in terms of what remained of it. How many more tours? How many more rooms full of people who needed to hear something real? How many more chances to stand somewhere inside the world of worship and gospel and be genuinely useful to the people who showed up? None of that mattered as much as what he said next, which was the thing nobody in that room was ready for. He said that he used to pray for a long career, and now, at 61, what he prays for is a faithful one. That whatever nights remain would count for something, that he would not sleepwalk through the finish line, that he would sing every song in every room like it was the last song left inside him, because one day it would be. And he wanted to be the kind of man, the kind of father, the kind of servant who gave everything right up until that day arrived. The room did not erupt. It did not need to. People sat with what he had said because he had put language around something a lot of people in those seats had been quietly carrying in their own lives, their own work, their own faith, their own sense of whether the time they had left was being used honestly. He said it without flinching, and that made all the difference. That is what this 2026 concert tour represents for Guy Penrod. Not a farewell, not a retirement, not a goodbye wrapped in nostalgia, but something more honest than any of those words. A man who has decided that every concert from this point forward is a gift he did not earn and does not intend to waste. Every night on that stage is a night he could not have guaranteed himself. Every person in those seats is a person he is choosing to reach with everything still left in him. Every note, every pause, every moment of genuine ministry that a room full of people can feel without being told what to feel. His legacy inside gospel music is not built from the years he spent at the top of a chart. It is built from moments like that one, from a man who stopped mid-concert and told a room full of strangers the truth about where he stood. From a father whose 10 children have watched him choose faithfulness over the easier version of himself for their entire lives. From a baritone voice that, even changed, even older, even carrying 6 decades of living inside it, still holds something that a room full of people in 2026 recognizes immediately as real. Dates are available right now. Blue Gate Performing Arts Center and other venues running through 2026 and into 2027. Get in the room. What happens there does not come through a screen, and it never has. Some things only exist if you are present for them. Have you ever seen Guy Penrod live? Tell me in the comments where and when, because I want to know. Subscribe so we can cover every stop on this tour together.